flicker of danger with a gleam behind those eyes. Familiar stranger, known him since I first learned to lie. Feels like a freight train tearing up and down my spine. I'm barely breathing, step by step. We're out of time, but if he keeps on coming, if he keeps on coming, if he keeps on coming, I won't make it out alive.
That is our increasingly good friend, Nicole Zaritis. We're going to do a show with the jazz singer and composer, Nicole Zaritis. I mean, it has a specific topic and everything, but it would take too long to explain it right here. Anyway, it's Ask or Tell Me Anything, 888-720-9677. You can call up and ask me anything. You can ask me what is the show we're going to do with Nicole Zaritis. 888-720-WNPR. That's the other way of dialing the number. Probably even more ways of dialing the number that I just haven't thought of. But yeah, you can talk about anything, and we're going to do that. Jason from Hamden, although his phone number came up as Norristown, Pennsylvania, which is a little confusing, is on the line right now, and we are very happy to talk to Jason. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Colin. Oh, man, Jason needs a new pair of shoes badly.
Okay.
You said you were offering Florsheims.
You saw that. You saw that on Facebook. Okay, I wasn't making that connection. On Facebook. Yeah, I said that. I said the best caller would get a pair of Florsheim shoes that do not fit.
Well,
you could probably get Marco Rubio's, because he needs a very diplomatic way of getting rid of those shoes.
Yeah, he certainly does. I don't presume to be the best caller today, but I thought I'd give it a try.
You can dream.
My shoes are in terrible condition.
Yeah, you can dream.
Anyway, I wanted to talk to you about America 250, otherwise known as the semi-quincentennial. Mm-hmm. Happening now and this summer. I'm a professor of history at Southern Connecticut State University, and I'm working on a class with my students right now about kind of looking at American independence through the lens of America 250 and also through the lens of the bicentennial. And so the way that we're doing that is through bicentennial schlock. We were inspired by a class that was offered at SUNY Buffalo in the spring of 1976 by a pioneering social historian named Jesse Lemish, and he had his students collect just cheap, mass-produced stuff that would be utterly disposable. And that collection is actually still around. It's at the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library in New Haven. And so my students are working on collecting schlock, such as it still exists from the bicentennial, but also America 250 schlock. And one of the things that was really fascinating about Lemish's project in 1976 is that when the public found out about what he was doing, people from all over the country started to send him and his students schlock. And so what I'm asking my students to do is go out and find it, and we're going to purchase it and put it on exhibit at Southern's library in May. But I was hoping that maybe through the medium of your show, we could reach a larger audience of Nutmeg listeners who were out there looking at in pharmacies and Stop and Shops for America 250 schlock. And if they could let me know, I'm fairly easily identifiable on Southern's website. Send me an email. That would be really, really wonderful.
Yeah, I think, first of all, just let's go back to the bicentennial for a second. Give an example or two of objets, of things that you have discovered that existed that shouldn't have.
Yeah, well, in this collection are all kinds of wonderful and crazy stuff, like bicentennial paper plates. There are bicentennial toilet paper wrapping. There's even a bicentennial condom. Can I say that on the air?
You just did, yeah. No, I think we approve of condoms. Condoms are good.
We should. And so, there's a Winchester rifle bicentennial catalog, all kinds of stuff, cereal boxes, Fruit Loops.
Well, I have to say the Winchester rifle is kind of on brand. It's like, how do you think we got here? We shot at a lot of people.
Yes.
So yes.
But I think the people who were looking at the Winchester catalog at that time weren't necessarily thinking that critically about the role. Of the rifle.
No, I don't think that there was they went through Howard Zinn and thought, okay, yeah, let's do this.
No,
this will prove a point. So I have some more questions for you. Actually, I first of all want to say this is my little contribution to the bicentennial, which is that there was, as you may have already discovered, at first I think it was a professional soccer team. I think it was first called the Hartford Bicentennials, and then it moved on to the Yale Bull, and then it became the Connecticut Bicentennials. But I remember even thinking at the time, and I played in an exhibition game against the Hartford Bicentennials, and then the only time I ever, like as a pretend sports reporter, actually covered a game and filed a story was at Connecticut Bicentennials. But I remember thinking at the time, well, this can't, I mean, you can't call it that much longer, right? I mean, it's not like the 76ers or something, which you can sort of do because that always happened in 76. But, you can't call something the bicentennials for a really long time. I mean, the thing folded anyway. It didn't matter.
I wouldn't think that it would be a name that would age very well or have much staying power. But there is a historian, and in fact, a New Haven-based historian, who's just written a book about the bicentennial commemoration. It's called The Memory of 76 is what his book is called. He's just spoken at the New Haven Museum. But he argues for what he calls a long bicentennial, so that he thinks that the bicentennial era was really from 1969 through 1989. So perhaps
Jill Lepore,
you could make an argument for a longer duration.
Didn't Jill Lepore or somebody just write a long article about this in the New Yorker? There's like a big, huge article in the New Yorker. I think it was Lepore.
Maybe
about the sort of about that whole idea. I have a question for you though. So, I would have been just out of college, or at the end of my college time. I graduated in 76 is what I'm trying to say. But
you're a bicentennial graduate.
Something.
Then.
Yeah. That and $3 will get you a cup of coffee. But so no, I was sort of wondering, I think there wasn't a lot of kind of Howard Zinn type questioning of any of this. And I think about my whole life as a schoolboy, and in middle school and high school, having civics class and American history class and stuff. And there was just very little skepticism about anything. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, that's other kinds. I mean, I remember thinking about our civics class and learning about rights, for example. And I mean, it's now become very clear to me that you don't have rights until you pursue them, and that your rights can be violated, and then you have to hire a lawyer and spend a lot of money to maybe get your rights back. I mean, it just doesn't really work the way Mr. Miner taught us in our 8th grade civics class. But and so few things do, and the Constitution itself, obviously, with its deprivation of rights for women and slaves, yada yada. And I'm just wondering, are today's students, do they start from a place of deeper skepticism, or are they pretty jazzed up about the semi-sesquicentennial or whatever the hell it's called?
Oh, I'd say that they're not very jazzed up about the semi-quincentennial, if they know it's happening really at all, or if it really registers for them in any meaningful way. But I mean, I can really mostly speak for Southern students in particular, many of whom are, they're coming from their native people to Connecticut, right? Many of them are first-generation college students, and it's probably for that reason, because they come from a certain socioeconomic and a fairly diverse racial and ethnic background. Their sense of suspicion and skepticism about the way that power works politically, economically, culturally is very fine-tuned and sharp. Yeah, I don't really have any problem getting into those questions with them.
Yeah, you put that very eloquently. I love it. By the way, the article I'm talking about is called, according to our research department, our crack research department, Scandal, Protest, Goofiness, and Grandeur at the U.S. Bicentennial. It ran pretty recently in the New Yorker. You might want to track it down.
Oh, thank you. Well, I love everything that Jill Lepore does, so I will check that out as soon as I'm done talking to you. But
all right, Jason, the takeaway
Yep.
is people need to get in touch with you about crap they have in their houses that's bicentennial in nature.
Yeah, it's not memorabilia, right? It's stuff and so that makes it more challenging, but it's stuff that would be pretty disposable, and Lemish defined it as something that you could buy for under $1.
Okay. But it's not like radial tires. Okay.
no. Please, no radial tires. We don't have the kind of space for that. But not just bicentennial stuff, but also, and maybe even more importantly, America 250 stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Such as it exists in the world. We're interested in that. We're putting on an exhibition at the library on May 6th. We're going to put all this stuff on display and kind of speak between the 2026 and 1976.
This all sounds great, and we'll do what we can for you.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry to use you in that way.
Yeah, that's okay. I've been used in much worse ways than that.
Okay.
So yes, no, thanks for your call, Jason. I really appreciate it. That's a whole other topic. I like schlock, and I also like election schlock. And it used to be, I don't know, I haven't been to the Jefferson Bailey, whatever it's called now, the big Democratic dinner every year. But it used to be you'd go and just look at the, we didn't eat there, but you go and you look at the seating, and there would be all these little things that various politicians would have put there. Like there'd be the Susan Beisowitz ruler, that was a ruler one year. She had a ruler. I'm not quite sure what the message was there, and George Jepson, who was our former Attorney General, and who I live near him and we see each other a lot. But I remember George Jepson had George Jepson potholders, and I mistakenly reported them as saying, "You won't get burned with Jepson," and then he stiffly corrected me to say, they said ready to serve, and I said mine was so much better. Potholders that say you won't get burned with Jepson. He was correcting me like I had come up with this very tawdry an inferior idea, and that ready to serve was so much better. Anyway, that's schlock as well, I'm just saying. All right, let's go to Mike in Woodbury, and we've got Jane, we've got Eric, we got lots of people. If we get you, it'll be even better, won't it? Oh, I put the wrong person on the air. I put Jane. That's fine. You're never the wrong person, Jane. You're always the right person. What would you like to talk about?
Hi, are you talking to Jane?
I'm talking to Jane, and I think that would be you.
I'm Jane.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about how the atmosphere in the country right now, especially since the new attempted restrictions on trans and LGBTQ people, there's a feeling that I feel as though I'm traveling in the South during segregation in the 1960s, where if you didn't fit the 1950s stereotypes of sexual being, you were suspicious. You were regarded with suspicion, and you had to be very careful of what you did and what you said so that you wouldn't be hauled in for some kind of misdemeanor, so you would not fit these new rules and restrictions on trans and LGBTQ people. And even though Kansas, in particular, has very restrictive new attempts, Connecticut does not, but there's still this feeling when you're out in public that various people are looking at you like you might be trans or might be LGBTQ. And people in our government, for instance, at the end of August, at the IMCE school terrorism in, I believe it was in the Midwest. I can't remember the name of the place now. Kash Patel said it was a trans terrorism attack on that school, and I've forgotten how many kids.
Well, I think it's important to sort of tease this apart a little bit and say, and I don't want, first of all, yes, to the extent that the current administration ran on and has governed from a place of anti-DEI, anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that certainly would include the LGBTQ community, yes, the clock has been turned back somewhat. But let me also just say that I think that it's important to make a discernment between the L and the G in particular, where, I think for gay people in America, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that problems have been completely eliminated. But even in this horrific administration I mean, the Secretary of the Treasury is an out gay man. And I mean, it's hard if I think you and I may be from a similar generation. It's hard to imagine that being the case, even 20 or 25 years ago. I think, isn't Richard Grinnell gay? I'll probably get in trouble if he's not. Although, why should I? But I think Grinnell also, the guy who he just got fired as the Kennedy Center guy. But, that in general, I used to be on talk radio on a mostly conservative station, WTIC, in the 90s, and I started talking about gay marriage, and people thought I was insane. It wasn't just that, I don't see it that way. People would call up and say, are you crazy? Gay people can't get married. Gay men can't get married. I mean, they almost couldn't wrap their minds around the idea that I was even suggesting such a thing. And look, it didn't take very long before we had gay marriage. So I don't want to erase the progress that got made, or even claim that it's been erased more than it actually has. Now I think trans people are in a bit different category right now. They have been in the crosshairs of this administration, certainly through the last electoral cycle and beyond. They are being treated very, very differently than gay and lesbian or however.
They're being treated as though they do not exist.
Or
this
that
administration wants to deny the existence of any problem that our country has.
Yeah. And they're either denied, their existence is negated, or their existence is acknowledged for the purposes of scapegoating them. Anyway, but I take your point, and thanks for calling, and we're just going to move on here because we have... Okay, we can do this really fast. We can do this one really fast. This is Stephen in New Britain. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Colin. Happy St. Patty's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. We should have picked out Irish music and stuff like that, and I just didn't. I don't know why I didn't. I feel... that is sort of for amateurs, I'm Irish all year long. Anyway, hi, Stephen.
Hello. My question for you is, what are your thoughts on, I'll state my opinion and ask what you think of it. So I was thinking about Oasis, most famously in recent news, got back together last year. And for many years, basically since the start of their career back in the 90s, they've been criticized or celebrated, depending on who you ask, for essentially ripping off the style of the Beatles. And I started thinking about how the attitude towards the Beatles, looking at contemporary attitudes throughout the 70s and 80s, the Beatles were not truly venerated as legends of rock and roll until around the time that Oasis and similar bands of that generation, the next generation after the Beatles of British popular music, started ripping them off. That's when they sort of heralded in this idea that the Beatles had a distinct style, the idea of recognizing a particular kind of music as Beatle-ish. So in a way,
I think that's
the Beatles created Oasis
to me,
as much as Oasis created the Beatles.
Well, first of all, Oasis is nothing like the Beatles. Starting with, they're just like not as good as the Beatles, but I think you're rewriting history here. I mean, when the Beatles, there's a reason it was called Beatlemania. There was an excitement about the Beatles from the jump that was really, really different from anything that had ever existed. And then they did this other stuff where, every 18-month cycle, the band would radically invent itself and put out an album like Rubber Soul or Revolver that didn't resemble any of the other albums that had come before and didn't resemble anybody else's music too. Every time they reinvented themselves, they kind of left their imitators behind and did something different, to the point that by the time they're in the studio recording Strawberry Fields, and this is a point that doesn't get made enough, the most popular band in the world is also an avant-garde band, which is almost impossible. I mean, avant-garde kind of by definition can't be the most popular thing in the world. But here are these guys who are, at the time, by the standards of the day, really experimenting a lot, not losing their popularity at all. We've got a drumming show that's going to go on the air next week, but we've already recorded most of it. And one thing the author of this book about drumming says is that, until John Bonham came along, all rock and roll drummers just wanted to sound like Ringo. That was their goal. and Ringo is probably the least celebrated of all the Beatles. So no, I don't agree with you at all. I don't think that the Beatles acquired their aura retroactively or retrospectively. The Beatles at the time that they were doing anything that they were doing were a story unlike any musical story I've seen in America in my life.
Oh, of course, I'm not discounting that. The main point, I believe, is that when people, at least of my generation, people who grew up in the 2000s and 2010s, when we think of music that sounds Beatle-ish, generally we're not thinking about music from the Please Please Me era. We generally think of peak Beatles, the most Beatle-y that the Beatles ever sounded, as that era between, I would say, sort of like the tail end of the Rubber Soul era into Sgt. Pepper's and the White Album, and that's generally the core of what sounds Beatle-ish. The beginning, where they were, very much a rock and roll, evolved from the English skiffle scene, that is generally not what people think of as the sound of the Beatles when they want to make music that is Beatle-ish.
Yeah.
I think that was not truly canonized until the Oasis came along and started making music that specifically sounded like that core era of the Beatles' career. Not to discount, of course, the tremendous music that was. I'm a huge Beatles fan myself, I will say, that they've made peak music throughout their career. But the most Beatle-y that the Beatles ever were was of that time that had only really been canonized, at least from my perspective, as someone who was not even a thought in my parents' mind at the time, that the Beatles were actually around. That's my take.
Okay. Well, thanks for those thoughts. I could go on about this, but I think that would wreck the show. Okay, so I've got Peter, Mike. Mike has got a really important thing that I want to get to, and Eric has got his usual interesting. Okay, we need to take a break. That's the only way it'll work. We'll take a break, and we'll come back with an Oasis hit sweep. All three of the.
Now we have faded, hadn't anticipated that I'd want to crawl back right into your view. I turn myself red, out here looking for blue. Just say you want me, so I can go. Just say you want me, so I can go. It's really that easy. I leave you alone. Just say you want me, so I can go. Just say you want me, so I can go. Just say you want me, so I can go. It's really that easy. Did you say I've got a lot to learn? Well, don't think I'm trying not to learn. Since this is the perfect spot to learn, teach me tonight. Starting with the ABC of it, right down to the XYZ of it. Help me solve the mystery of it. Teach me tonight. The sky.
All right, I don't like fading this song because it's a great song, but we have to I'm sorry, Sammy Khan. We have to move on. All right, 888-720-9677. Don't sound like I'm kind of unsure of what I'm doing. 888-720-WNPR. You call up, you talk, I listen. That's the way it works. So we need to get to Mike right away, I think, because this is something that has some real substance to it. Not that the other calls haven't. They have. But anyway, let's go to Mike right now.
Hi, Colin.
Hi.
Whoop, am I on? Yes, there
Yeah,
I am.
yes.
Okay. So I want to talk about the, quote, Save America Act, which is really the Save the Republican Party Act. And the the Republicans, well, it barely passed the House. I think it's going in front of the Senate this week, and the conventional wisdom is it's not going to pass because it needs 60 votes and the filibuster and all that. Although Trump has said that if it doesn't pass, he's going to issue an executive order, but which may or may not work. But what the Republicans have done brilliantly is somehow convince the American people that this is simply about voter ID. It's something like 83% of people, think that that's fine, the voter ID. Of course, like show your driver's license. Well, there's much more to it than that. To register, you have to show a passport, which something like 150 million people, American citizens, don't have a passport. Your birth certificate, how many people still have their birth certificate? Even if I had mine, it would have probably dissolved by now.
I think,
from age.
I think a figure that I saw was that 29 million Americans currently do not have one of the requisite documents or could not put their hands on one of those documents in a 24-hour period or 48-hour period or something. So yes, one of the ways to look at this is to deal with a problem whose existence has yet to be proven, the problem of non-citizens voting. And if and when it were proven, it's going to be a very small number. You are prepared to disenfranchise, whatever portion of the 29 million people who don't have those documents that are not able to solve that problem very easily, plus a whole bunch of people who won't understand what the requirements are, who won't pick up the cue or the information that they need essentially to re-register or provide new documentation. It does seem like, and look, I was going to say one more thing and then I'll let you talk. Because this is something that I've been thinking about a lot and I haven't said out loud or written in a column or anything like that. So whenever gun control comes up or any kind of modification of our gun laws comes up, I used to, particularly when I was on that other station, I used to say, there's a lot of stuff you have to do to be able to own and drive a car. You got to register the car. You got to have proof you've got insurance for the car. You have to have some driving instruction before you can drive the car. It's way easier to own a gun than a car and to use a gun than to drive a car. And how much sense does that make? And the answer would come back, yes, but owning a gun is a right. It's enumerated in the Constitution as a right. So it can't be, there's less of a case for interfering with it, modifying it, or impeding it at all because it's a right. Well, okay, so voting's a right. So overall, voting should be really easy because it's a right. And the idea that you would make voting harder and harder for a lot of people simply because you want to solve a problem whose existence is a question mark right now seems to me to be exactly the same kind of thing that is often brought forth as a reason for not doing anything about the proliferation of guns. So you can't have it both ways because the same people who say that gun ownership is a right a lot of those people are the people who are saying we may need to make it harder to register to vote. And I don't get that. Anyway, continue, Mike.
Well, and actually, I think it's not even a question because when they've done studies, it's like out of millions of people, there's like 5, people that voted illegally or something like that. Plus, it's just going to create confusion. People aren't going to know. I mean, some people are going to think that you have to do this even if you're already registered. You've got to go and you've got to get your birth certificate or whatever. And that's another part of this is that you just want to confuse people. Mm-hmm. And should I vote? Can I vote? Can I not vote?
Yeah, I think you're right, and I mean, I'm hoping it gets stalled in the Senate, but I don't think there's a guarantee, and of course, it would be a cloture question, and we'll have to see how all that unfolds. All right, we're going to move along to Eric. We've also got Elizabeth, David, and Peter, but Eric goes next because he's been waiting a while. Hi, Eric.
Hey, Colin. I'm calling about an interesting vocalization produced by some perched American crows, which I can't quite get my head around the purpose for. But it's a lot of bird observers believe it has to do with courtship because this time of year, American crows are generally moving around in flocks of 4 or 5 birds, which is each flock is believed to be composed of the breeding pair with the offspring from the previous year. But anyway, the sound is a rattle followed by a cuckoo kind of sound. And I'm sure a lot of people don't notice it because they don't pay attention. So it sounds kind of like cuckoo, like that, except it's a dry rattle instead of a musical trill.
It actually sounds a lot the way the aliens talk in the trailer for the new Spielberg movie, Deliverance Day. Maybe UFOs have been talking to the crows. But because crows make about 20 sounds, right?
Yeah.
There's sort of 4 basic categories. Most of the time they go, quack, quack, quack.
Hey, you're good. You're good at this.
Yeah, no, I used to have a whole crow impersonation bit. I used to work the comedy clubs.
Oh.
The audiences got tired very fast of that, though.
Okay. Do you do pigeon impersonation? You're the one that Cayenne was talking to.
Very possible. Very possible.
Okay. Well, anyway, prior to producing this vocalization, the reason why I want to encourage people to pay attention to it and notice it more is that prior to producing this vocalization, the crow will often take a deep bow, perform a deep bow, and then upon rising to its normal vertical position, and as the crow bows, it spreads its wings and tail out a little bit. And then as it rises to its vertical position, it produces the vocalization. So,
just practicing. But it's I need a drier rattle. It's more.
You need a drier rattle. That's it. See, somebody's going to need to hire you for this.
Why don't I ever win major broadcasting awards? Think of what I put out here every day. Why don't I have a Peabody? How come nobody gives me anything for that?
I'll have to see how well you do raccoons, the growling and
okay, that'll be next week's call, Eric. All right, we have to move on here before I lose my job. All right, I'm glad. Okay, we'll get to Mary Susan. Okay, I think Elizabeth's calling from Medford, Long Island, with a very good point. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi. Just first of all, I enjoy your show, and I really agree with you on that SAVE Act. That you made some really good points there. But I am calling in response to your previous caller about the gays. You said, well, gays have progressed. Yes, but it's very tenuous. Mm-hmm. It's, they want to take away the marriage. They do want to take away the marriage. And as I see it, like, okay, so Grinnell, there's a few others who are gays. It's almost like, I can't be a racist because my best friend is black, so that makes me not a racist.
I'm going to just stop you there and say the point that I was making. So Scott Besson, who's our Secretary of the Treasury, is an out gay man. Now, it isn't. I'm not a racist because I'm just saying that there was a time in my lifetime. I don't know how old you are, but for a lot of the time, that was unthinkable. That you would be. I mean, I don't know who the first out gay cabinet member was, but I can guarantee you it was a pretty recent cabinet member because you just couldn't do it. I mean, and I'm not, by the way, questioning at all what you're saying. Yeah. Yes, the rights are imperiled. Although, even with gay marriage, they want to take it away. Well, it sort of depends on who they are. Gay marriage has polled really well ever since it kind of got over the hurdle of coming to life. It's always polled very well. I don't think there's any significant, electoral pulse that's interested in turning back the clock on that.
Well, maybe it's because I live in Long Island and it's a lot more. It's not quite as open. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, people's attitudes. Yeah. You and I are the same age. My brother's gay, and I've watched the whole, going through the AIDS, everything. And you're right. There's a lot of, they're a lot more accepted. But it's something that could easily be taken away.
Yeah.
And
yes.
it's tenuous.
Yeah, and I don't mean to minimize that at all.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I do think that you sort of have to acknowledge that the trans people are on the hot seat in a way that maybe gay people were 60s, 70s, that kind of thing. And I think in terms of Long Island, it's mainly that guy Carmine. He's always, hey, you. What kind of tutti frutti are you?
I'm on the social media, and I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah. No, there's
I call Long Island the South of the North. I'm from a Southern family, and
I'd pick that up a little bit. Yeah. There's going to be troglodytes at all times, but I just don't want to not acknowledge the gains. And
right. I agree with you there. Yeah. I do agree.
We should be proud that
agreement there.
We should be proud that we fixed those things. All right, let's take a little break here, Elizabeth. Thanks for calling. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We got Mary Susan, we got David, we got Peter. Who knows? Maybe you'll call 888-720-9677.
Who makes some money gets wrapped up in it.
All right, time to say some thank yous. And boy, do we have some thank yous to say. The maestro Dylan Reyes picked out that song. So we added rooster noise to the number of bird noises that were done so far here today. There could be others coming. And we should also thank Robin Doyen Aiken, our boss, but also screening the calls today and being nice to people and engaging with them. Lily Testing Quality Entertainment Productions has produced this show and would like you to know that on Monday, April 6th, we will be at the Yale Divinity School, where I still have not handed in my agape paper, I guess from 75, but at 5:30, Monday, April 6th, 5:30, Yale Divinity School. We're going to be there with Christian Wyman, a very interesting thinker. We were going to talk about poetry, faith, music, awe, but I'm most interested in his ideas about consciousness and how consciousness might be connected to some sense of the divine. So if that doesn't get you out there, I mean, really, we could completely reconfigure your understanding of existence. And it's free admission. We should charge you something for that. But we're not going to. For more information or to register for free, because we do need to sort of know who's coming and stuff. Because obviously this thing is going to just sell out. So for more information or to register, go to ctpublic.org/Colin. ctpublic.org, and then don't write out /, just make a little slash mark with your typewriter. Colin, Colin. Okay. If you have any questions, you can email me, colin@ctpublic.org. Okay, so here we go. We're back in business. We're going to go back to the phones, and what are we going to do? We're going to All right, we'll talk to David in Glastonbury. Then we've got Peter in Wallingford and Mary Susan in Kent, where they have a lot of leaves. They have a lot of leaves in Kent. All right, so here goes. David, you have the floor right now.
Hi, Colin. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to yourself.
Yeah, it's actually my birthday. My mom, funny story, my mom came straight off the boat from South America. I was born in a Catholic hospital. The nurses say, hey, you should name him Patrick. He was born on St. Patrick's Day. My mom barely spoke English, had no idea who St. Patrick was, so she named me David.
You could actually apply for citizenship as a leprechaun because of your birthday. And it could be good, just in terms of getting through security. Anyway, go ahead.
I want to know if we could start a movement where we would be able to either redefine or recoin the phrase Trump derangement syndrome. I know it's not an official word in the dictionary, but I feel it's a phrase that will linger on in time. And having an argument with somebody that I knew in telling me that I had Trump derangement syndrome, whereas I kind of turned it around on him and said, if anybody else were to make that decision or have that thought process or put that idea into a concept, would that be viable to you? And they were just kind of dumbfounded. So can we turn that Trump derangement syndrome phrase into anybody who would think that outside of Trump, if anybody were to make that decision, they would be the crazy ones, not sort of the more sensible people?
Yeah, I mean, I feel your pain because I often, usually in response to my column as opposed to my show, there's a certain group of people, and it's a small group of people who will just, send an email that it's kind of TDS, accompanied by a couple of other words. And I think that's increasingly shorthand for, I don't want to address the concerns that you're bringing up right now. Like the really strange thing that he said or did yesterday and the day before. I don't want to talk about those things. So they go into this little pigeonhole called TDS. And my advice is just to not engage. I mean, yeah, I know what you're saying, which is that the real derangement is pretending that this isn't weird. But I don't even think there's any point. I don't think you're going to make any headway. And I think the other thing is the pool is shrinking. I will tell you that I hear from fewer of those people these days than I did a year ago, and every day somebody like, Joe Kent, who just stepped down today, saying, I can't work here anymore. And I served, I did 11 tours of duty in the Middle East. And there was no imminent danger from Iran, and I can't serve in a government that claims there was. I just think, there's sort of a drip of this every day. So hopefully we'll be staying out of those conversations. But I feel your pain. I get it. We're going to talk to Peter right now. Peter in Wallingford. Hi, Peter. You're on the air.
Hi, Colin. Yes. What I am calling about is it's a monumental day today, March 17th, because I made a major breakthrough on simplifying my pursuit of building, because I do all my own work, the best, the most efficient, smallest, compact, powerful, perpetual motion inventions, which will power generators in the rest of the world, change the world. I was in CVS drugstore to pick up my medications last night, and they have those magazines from Time magazine or whatever it is. People change the world. This invention will definitely change the world.
Yeah, it's making a lot of background noise right now. Can you just turn it off for a second so we can talk?
Oh.
The machine, the perpetual motion machine?
Hold on.
Okay, that's good. Okay. Much quieter now. Oh, because it was really kind of making this kind of humming noise in the background. I couldn't really hear you. They have them at Costco, perpetual motion machines. So are you sure that yours is really all that different from the ones that I could buy already?
Wow. You can't go to Walmart or anywhere to buy what I get.
I didn't say Walmart. I said Costco. Costco is not Walmart.
Right, but you can't go to Home Depot where you would most likely go to buy it. And this is going to go in all the electric cars.
Yep.
And, Donald Trump discourages anything to do with electric cars or climate change and all that stuff. And Ford Motor Company won't even pay attention to me. So I might end up with BYD, Build Your Dream Cars, the largest electric car manufacturer in the world. Now,
that would be you. You would be BYD. You would be sort of the new, like Musk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I tried to contact them all. Elon Musk. I contacted all his emails right here in the United States. No response. I contacted over 200 investors. starting right here in New England, would ask for funding. Not one good response from any of them. Nothing.
I can't believe it. I can't believe you've invented a perpetual motion machine, which, by the way, you shouldn't be able to turn off. That was a little bit of a trick, okay? That was a little bit of a trick when I said turn it off. But if you've invented a perpetual motion machine, I guarantee you're about to become a very wealthy man. Or it could be like a cold fusion kind of thing where they just, they don't want the word of this to get out. You probably shouldn't be calling talk shows about it. Because, there could be forces. Never mind. I don't even want to get involved here. I'm sorry I ever took that call. Here's Mary Susan in Kent, where they have a lot of leaves. Hi, Mary Susan.
Hi. Everyone is just so used to seeing these green expanses of boring lawns, and everyone needs to get used to what it looks like to have leaves on the ground. And 90% of the pollinators are in the leaf bed right now, and if you collect it all up and throw it away, you're getting rid of a lot of pollinators. So wait till it's after 50 degrees for a number of days in a row before you pull up all your leaves.
Isn't it? Are we saying this too late though? Didn't everybody get all their leaves, back in October, November? They should have left them on the ground all the way through the winter, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
but
they didn't.
I like to call in the fall and in the spring.
Okay, so this is your spring call.
Yes.
And the whole idea is if the snow all melts away and there are leaves on your lawn, let them sit there until, did we say 50 degrees? Is 50 degrees? Well, haven't we already hit 50 degrees?
Well, it has to be 50 degrees for a number of days.
A number of days,
and
okay.
In the garden, that's where you really want to leave them because it's a natural mulch and it keeps the weeds from coming up.
But eventually you can remove them because it will have been. And then can you put them in a perpetual motion machine because it's got to have something to run on.
Well, it is perpetual motion. It's Mother Nature.
Or the crows could come get them and use them in their bizarre courtship rituals, which involve bowing and scraping. This has been a very strange hour of radio is all I'm saying. Not you, Mary Susan. You're as sober as a judge. But
second day, yes.
Yes. Very odd set of calls here today. Well, Mary Susan, thank you so much, and thank you for your timely. I feel like maybe Mary Susan has called the show before and has done that in the past. So, I think we're kind of. It says by the clock in the clubhouse wall that we're almost done here. I did want to sort of bring up one topic today, one idea, and I thought I would bring it up at the end of the show so we wouldn't have to talk about it. But I discovered a term today called optimism bias. The phenomenon, this is Vox writing, describes the near universal disposition to overestimate the likelihood of good things happening and underplaying the risk of negative ones whenever anyone considers themselves smarter or more capable than the average person. I thought that was Dunning-Kruger syndrome, or more likely to win big at a casino. That's the optimism bias at work. Or like, let's bomb Iran because it'll work out even though I don't really know very much about Iran or what comes from Iran or what gets shipped through any kind of straits nearby Iran. But it'll work out, right? Because it's me. I wouldn't do dumb bombing. That would be optimism bias. All right. Thanks for listening today. Thanks to the staff for all their help. And we will be back with more.
Hurt I'm healing. It's all good. Joy I'm feeling. It's all